Hey, folks, intuitive wealth leaders, real estate investors, business owners. Welcome to today's uh, live stream. So, normally, yes, I'm here at 10 a.m. on Saturday mornings, and I know I'm late getting on today. So, I apologize, but I had another engagement this morning that just got over. And so I pushed this off to this afternoon. So hopefully, some people will still be able to join me. If not, you can definitely pick up the replay. And because it will live out there on Facebook, YouTube, on the Lead with Abundance pages, as well as on my personal Facebook and YouTube. So, what we're going to talk about today is fear. And fear being really what keeps us from doing things that help us be successful. So, and there's a lot of different types of fear. And when it comes to wealth and building wealth, that fear may be lack of knowledge. It may be due to lack of really understanding investments and what the right thing to do is. And it might be the fear of losing money, which we know that if we invest in things like the stock market, things like real estate, there's a potential for loss. There's no guarantee that you're not going to lose that money. So, fear really does hold us back quite a bit. So, um, you know, in my personal journey, uh, I think my mindset was really in the wrong place when it came to investing. And I didn't understand, there was a lot of stuff that I didn't understand. And so the things that I didn't understand, it made me fear having money in an investment. And so I just pulled out all my money. And, then I got myself in a position where I just kept kicking the can down the road. Well, I'll invest later, I'll do it later, and then I was 30, then I was 40, and now I'm 51. Um, and we've been working on our real estate investing business now for 7 years. And there's been a lot of personal growth in me, but there's been a lot of loss, financial loss, because it's risky. So you can't always guarantee your returns in investments. So fear, though, really sometimes keeps us from doing anything. It just stops us in our tracks, which really is no good, regardless of what you're doing. Whether you're trying to build a business from which you can build wealth, or you're investing in real estate, cryptocurrency, any kind of investment, it doesn't really matter what it is. But if your fear stops you in your tracks and you're not able to do anything because you're too afraid, then you're really never going to move forward. And so things that I have learned over time are that, sometimes you just have to put yourself out there. And I'm not saying, go invest money that you don't have and put yourself at risk financially, but certainly you should look at, what are maybe some safer investments. What are some things that I can do that would help me be able to invest in a safer way? Because there are safe investments out there, and I'm not going to talk about what they are or any of that, because I am not a financial planner, and I'm not here to give advice on investments, but learning about what's available and not assuming that everything is 100% risky is one way to start. So, to settle your fears, go out and learn a little bit about the different things that are available that you can invest in. So, uh, looking at fear from a business perspective, one of the things that I learned back in when I worked for state government, actually, it's really comfortable for us to sit behind our computer and maybe send an email or communicate with a text. And, it's easy to put stuff out on Facebook because we're sort of hidden, we're protected a little bit from uh, bad things that can happen by being behind this computer screen. And so, one of the things that I kind of got pushed past my comfort zone by a supervisor of mine when I worked for the state was, he always said, get out of your chair and go talk to people. And I'm like, well, I don't want to talk to people because, I'm an introvert and I don't like talking to people. I don't like calling people on the phone. I don't like approaching them. And especially if it's conflict, oh my gosh, I'm going to avoid conflict at whatever cost. I'm going to try to avoid conflict. And I still am like that. However, what he did was he pushed me beyond my comfort zone. And he taught me that, especially when there's conflict, going and communicating with a person face to face, and if you can't do it face to face, doing it on the phone was much better for the outcome and your relationship if you did it in that manner. And that was one of the things that I made sure that I put in front of my kids. Don't communicate during text. When you're upset, do not communicate via text. It's just a bad idea. You say things that you don't mean. Things are taken out of context because you can't see body language and you can't see those other communication cues. So just don't do it, and learn to, approach difficult situations face to face, even if it's hard. So face your fears. Don't let fear hold you back. So now with that, when I say that, you're like, oh, well, that's easy for you to say. Well, it's not, because sometimes I still do let fear hold me back. But what do I do in order to overcome it? So when my boss told me, you need to get up and go talk to people. I'm like, okay, how do I do that? And so I would kind of think through my my perception and my what I wanted to portray, communicate, maybe write some things down, write some talking points, and practice some of that before I got out of my chair and went and talked to somebody. Now, you can't control that conversation because it's going to be two-way when you go and you talk to somebody and say, "Hey, I'm concerned about X," and then they respond. But you definitely can put some of those thoughts together and make sure that you have the critical points that you want to make in front of you when you go talk to them. So I do the same thing when I'm talking on the phone now. So I still, when I call somebody, whether it's I'm calling somebody back because they've called me about selling their house, or I'm calling somebody that maybe has a vacant house, I might be outreaching to them, trying to find them, whatever it is, it still makes me so nervous. But I know that if I don't do it, I'm really not going to go anywhere in my business. So I need to figure out a way to make sure that I can do those things and push myself. So I ask myself, what's going to happen if you don't do this? And then I have to take a deep breath. I envision myself doing the things, and I envisioned myself being successful in doing whatever it is, making the phone call. So I make the phone call and I'm talking to the person and it goes just smashingly perfect, which, that doesn't happen. But if you envision it like that, it's more likely going to happen that way. So when you kind of put down all of your fears and focus on it going the right way, you're going to be so much more successful because you're going to come through that conversation as knowing what you're talking about, as being confident, as being a person who knows what they're talking about, and being able to offer yourself as a valuable asset to that person that you're talking to on the other end of the phone or the other side of the table if you're in person. So don't be afraid to practice what's going to happen, kind of go through those scenarios, think through what can be said. And I even will make sure that I still have little notes over here. So I might have some just real quick little, um, what do I want to impact questions or engagement questions, or, and I use these for coaching as well. Tell me more about, and what do you think about? And so, are you telling me that? And so, those reflective kind of questions, being able to help ensure that you're hearing people in the right way, because that's really effective communication. And so, we need to be active listeners and be listeners. And listening is sometimes hard, especially when we're trying to make ourselves credible. We want to show people what we know. And, so when we do speak, then it's kind of, it becomes too much rather than listening. So think about when you approach conversations, how you can uh, control the conversation in a way that you are listening more and talking less. So you want to get people talking, you want to get others talking. And so one of the things that I love to be able to do is, envision myself doing that. And envision myself doing that successfully, because when I do that, that builds my confidence and it reduces the fear because I'm seeing myself do it correctly and doing it in a good way and doing it with a positive outcome. So the more that I do that, the more I set up my mind to be successful when I actually do pick up that phone. So your intuition, which we are intuitive wealth leaders, so we do use intuition a lot. Now, I'm not going to say always use your intuition and don't look at facts and don't look at data, but use the data and use your intuition as it relates to that data. So, um, you know, you have to sometimes be very intuitive to what's going on around you and read between the lines when you're talking to people, when you're engaging with a client, when you're talking to staff in your business, when you're engaging at a networking event. You sometimes have to be very intuitive to kind of read between the lines, so that it can support your conversation and it can really support your decision making process if you're working in your business. So I am one of those people that I overthink things, but I have had to teach myself to sometimes just go with my intuition and go with what feels right at the moment. And if it's wrong, then correct course. Figure out how to correct course. But don't overthink and overthink and overthink, because then you're just using it as a tool to feed your fear and not move forward. So don't be an overthinker. I know it's hard. Believe me, I know it's hard because I am an overthinker. I overthink a lot of things, but sometimes you just have to go, okay, this is the decision I'm going to make, and I'm going to move forward with that decision, and I am going to start taking action. So, also, set a small goal. If you're afraid of something, set a really small goal. So maybe you if you're afraid of talking on the phone, for example, set a small goal to call someone that it's easy to talk to, that you're not really in a sales position, or you're not trying to sell anything, or talk about your business, or you're not trying to convince them of anything. Just call and have a conversation, and then absorb what that feels like. Because when you take that to the sales call, that's what you want to feel. You want it to be a conversation. It's not like, oh my gosh, what am I going to say next to get them to say yes to buy my product, or to sell me the house, or to buy into coaching, or whatever it is. That doesn't matter. Just have the conversation. Focus on the conversation, and not so much what are the things I need to say to sell this. Because that's where you add value, and that's where you're going to be the most productive, and you're going to be perceived as a credible person, and you're going to have respect for the way you approach the conversation. So we always want to practice our skills. So if you remember, let's go back to grade school. I honestly don't know if they do this anymore. I know a lot of things were different even when my kids went through school from when I went to school. And so I have no idea what they do today. But when we went to school, in elementary school, we were taught how to add and subtract, do multiplication with flashcards. We used flashcards, and it became a memory and a habit that we learned how to, 4 times 4 is 16, 8 times 8 is 64. I hope it's 64. I'm not great at my flashcards anymore. I've gotten spoiled with the calculator, but the point is that our flashcards and our practicing those flashcards is how we got good at something. So role play with someone, role play, even talk to yourself in the mirror, even just read your scripts over and over again, and talk to your computer, or you can video yourself. Would be a great opportunity to just set up your cell phone and take a video of yourself, and act like you're talking to someone across the table, or act like you're talking to someone on the phone, and how that conversation goes. And just practice your scripts, and think about, yes, you can't really control the other side of the conversation. And I get stuck in that place so many times, because somebody either says something or asks a question that I was not at all expecting. So have you ever been there where you have all your stuff and you're all ready, and you have it all set up and you're ready to go, and you feel like you're in a good place, and you're able to really get in there, and you're saying the right things, and then all of a sudden the person says, well, what about this? And you say, oh, I wasn't really thinking about that. So you have to stop and rethink kind of what you're going to say. So that's okay. And it's okay in those conversations to say, well, you know what? I think I need to think about that. You don't just have to blurt out an answer, which is usually our first response, because we don't want to look dumb, or we don't want to, let anybody believe that we don't know what we're talking about. So we just blurt out an answer. I would not recommend that we do that. But for sure, I would recommend just take a step back and say, that's a really good question or a really good thought. And I really need to think about that for a minute. And can I get back to you on that? And that's okay. So, Melanie, hi, I'm glad you joined me. If you're still here, sorry I haven't been able to I haven't seen the comments. I don't always catch them. So, Melanie, so the Bible says, fear not 365 times. It gives me courage when I'm afraid. Yeah, so find those things that are going to give you courage when you're afraid, just like that. So Melanie has a different strategy than what I use. I use, trying to, like I said, envisioning myself being successful and envisioning myself doing the thing successfully that I'm afraid to do. But other people have other ways. So there are lots of different ways that you can overcome fear and help yourself overcome fear. You just have to find that strategy that works for you. So some of them that I suggest are visualization, like I've talked about, setting small incremental goals. So making sure that you're not setting your goal so big that you fail, but you're setting a baby step. So what's the one thing that you can do that's going to get you through that phone call? Well, you can dial the number. That's the first step. I'm just going to dial the number. I'm just going to, maybe a step back from that. I'm going to make a list of 3 people that I'm going to call. And, your one thing is actually making the list. It's not making the calls, it's making the list. And that's a step towards where you're going. So make the list. And so making those incremental goals, smaller steps, and cheer yourself on for making that progress, because it will definitely help you be more successful as you move forward and add to those things that you're doing. And use affirmations. So I am not afraid of the phone. I love math. Those are some of mine that I need to work on. So I'll throw those out there. But I tell myself, I love math. I actually have come to love the financial calculator, and using the financial calculator. Someone finally, I'll say it was Andy Teasley, finally helped me understand how to use the financial calculator. I'd been through several classes and I'm like, I don't know how to use this thing. I could not figure it out. And I'm sure I don't know how to use it to its full capacity or extent, but I know enough now that I can use it. And what I also learned is that AI and ChatGPT is a huge tool, a great tool for doing math. And so I don't have to know how to do it all. And I don't have to remember all the formulas because the AI does it for me. So I can plug in an evaluation of something and it'll start analyzing it for me. So, I can tell it, I want to look at this property. Here's the ARV. Here is my rehab estimate. And, how much can I offer on this property? And it'll tell me if I plug those numbers in. So it's a great, great thing, AI, because it does help us do things faster and better. And so I'm learning to use that more and, learning, of course, you still have to know something. I have to know something about some of the metrics that need to go into evaluating a deal. I just used it to evaluate a multifamily deal and put in a bunch of what ifs. What if this? What if that? I've used it to create scenarios. So if I have this scenario and I make this offer and pay this amount in cash, how do I rehab it and sell it in a way that I can make a 12% return? What does that need to look like? And so I'm basically using it to help me project where I need to be in the future. And that's huge. That's huge. So those were things that I was fearful of before and wouldn't pull the trigger because I didn't have enough information. Well, now I can dump it in a chat GPT. And if you're one of those analytical people that wants to see this scenario and that scenario and that scenario, and you're like, oh my gosh, I don't have a spreadsheet. I don't even know how to use a spreadsheet. I don't know how to put all this stuff in a spreadsheet. So what do? I just, and I was just kind of like, I don't know how to do all of this. This is way too much. But now that I use Chat GPT, I can ask those questions of the AI and she tells me, and then I can ask more questions and it gives me a lot of information. I still have to kind of pull it all together. Sometimes I can tell her to summarize it for me and she does. But that has helped me finding tools to help me be more confident in my information that I'm putting out. That is huge. So don't be afraid to invest in tools that are going to help you do your business better, because that will help you be more confident in what it is that you're presenting or you're sharing. Is if you have tools that help you do it effectively and you know that you're putting good stuff out there. So we're here, this community. My hope and vision for our Intuitive Wealth Leaders community is that we help each other and that we are here and that we all understand that some of this stuff is scary, and that we learn from each other when it comes to investing and personal growth and fear and mindset and all of those things, that we learn from each other and we be able to lean on each other to help us. So, maybe if you don't want to go at it alone, let's partner on something. Let's get together. There are other people who might want to partner. And I think we get so stuck in, I have to do this for my business and I don't want to share in this deal or that thing, or, I don't want people to know my secrets or any of that we get so bogged down in that, and that competitive nature of our human nature comes out. And it really it makes it hard for us to grow. But if we had people by our side that, either they are part of our team or you function with them as part of a team, you can grow and you can support each other, especially when things are hard. And that's one of the things I miss from being in the corporate world, is having, those side conversations. And, when things got hard or I didn't know how to do something, I had a wealth of knowledge out there that I could go run around and ask people to help me. And they would, because we were all a corporate team. We were a team. And now it's a little bit different. But this community is still about building that team and creating a team of individuals who can help each other grow and be successful. So I want to wrap up by really just saying we all have inner strength. And if you set your mind to doing something successfully, you're going to achieve it. Now, maybe not the first time, may not happen right away, but you will if you keep trying and you keep telling yourself that you can. It's that mindset and getting past that fear and taking those baby steps, towards your fear. Face it head on and move past it. And once you do that a couple of times, the fear becomes less, and it doesn't consume you as much, because you're not just thinking about the fear. When you're thinking about, oh my gosh, I got to make that phone call. Oh my gosh, I got to go talk to this person. And you're thinking about it, thinking about it, thinking about it. But then when you actually do it, you think, oh, well, that wasn't all that bad. It wasn't as bad as I thought. Um, so, face those fears, because what you have set up in your mind for how bad it's going to be or how scary it is probably is not even close to what it is. It's probably not that scary. Um, you know, so if you need a cheerleader or you need somebody to help push you in that direction, let me know. I love being people's cheerleader, and I love helping people push past their fears and see that success on the other side. That's something that I very much enjoy, and it fulfills me to see you succeed. So come to the community, post in the Facebook group, share your comments, your thoughts about how you engage with fear and how you are able to put strategies together to push past the fear, because what you do may help somebody else. So I encourage you to share that. And so I plan on being back next week. I believe at the regular time, 10 a.m. in the morning. Sometimes things come up, and I, may push it back again. But I'm planning on being on at 10 a.m. And I will see you again soon. Take care. Have a